So I saw some people. My dad wrote a really great article on his Substack about why, considering the idea of firing Kyle Shanahan, acknowledging that it won't happen this year, but also acknowledging that Eddie DeBartolo would have this year, and that if Shanahan doesn't win the Super Bowl again next year, which he almost certainly won't, then at what point is enough enough? So look, I think there's interesting parallels between Kyle Shanahan and George Seifert and Bill Walsh. We all know Shanahan's going into year 10. That was Walsh's final year. He won 3 Super Bowls, including in his final year. That's the year he got fired. Seifert lasted 8 years. He won a Super Bowl in his first season, and he won a Super Bowl in like his 5th season, something like that. And then they fired him after his 8th season, 96. They went 12-4 that year, and they lost in the divisional round of the playoffs. They won in the wild card round. They beat Philly. Then they went and played Green Bay, who was the eventual Super Bowl champion that year with Brett Favre. They beat the Patriots. Lost to them 35-14. Seifert got fired. That's the 49ers history. That was Steve Young. That was Jerry Rice. That's what they know. And now, was it the wrong move? I mean, I don't know. Seifert might have been done at that point. Hiring Mariucci to replace him was the wrong move. If they had they were getting guys they kept losing to the Packers. And they at that point felt like, you know what? Seifert's done a lot of good things. He won the Super Bowl twice. We just won 12 games. But we can't beat the Packers. And we have to beat the Packers to get to go back to the Super Bowl. So as good as Seifert is, his time is up. That was the idea. And you know what? There was truth to that. So they tried to hire someone from the Packers. They hired the wrong guy. They hired Mariucci. They should have hired Andy Reid. That was the genius over there. It wasn't Mariucci. Mariucci was just thinner with better hair. I don't know what that was about. They hired Mariucci, and then he did beat Green Bay in his second season in the playoffs. But he was essentially a mediocre quarterback coach. But still, the idea that a coach can get fired after 8 years and 2 championships because it's clear that you simply can't beat the team to beat. That was it, right? George. When it was you against the Cowboys 3 years ago, you found a way. But you keep losing to Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre. You gave up 35 points. And your offense stinks too. When you had Mike Shanahan, the offense was good, but then he left and it was Mark Trestman. It wasn't as good. So they canned him. And I don't remember the players really protesting. I think they understood. So, George, we love you. It's been a long time. There's consequences we all have to face. And now we're going to play for Steve Mariucci. That's why I can't wait to hear what Steve Young has to say about this blowout loss in the playoffs. He hasn't spoken yet on KMBR. I guess he will tomorrow. He's always very measured, and he doesn't really take shots at the Niners. He's usually very positive, but I'd like to know what he says and what he doesn't say about this. Because in his world, where he's from, during his era, if there was a loss like this in the playoffs, coach would get fired or the quarterback would get replaced or both. Remember back in the 80s when there was a couple years in a row when Bill Walsh and Joe Montana got bounced early in the playoffs. They scored 3 points. They brought in Steve Young. Joe, you're on notice. And for him to keep his job, he had to play like the greatest quarterback of all time for 4 years, which he did. And then after all that and another Super Bowl victory, Bill Walsh still got fired. Cold world. Or, I mean, if you have a head coach, if you have an owner with real standards. Steve Young has real standards. Steve Young wouldn't say fire Kyle Shanahan if there wasn't cause. But Steve Young came from the era where, he didn't play for a coach who just got to hang around an organization for life without winning. Bill Walsh was under pressure to win the Super Bowls every year. So was George Seifert. Is Kyle? Not really. And I think that's kind of the problem here. It's not enough pressure on him to win Super Bowls. There's too many excuses. And I don't care how much you exceeded expectations and how much farther you went than people thought. If the last game of the year is a 41-6 beatdown, it's not a successful year. You can't lose like that. You can't lose like that in the NFL and say everything's okay. Because it's not. The Niners couldn't beat the Packers. They fired their coach and hired a coach from the Packers. That was the thought process. And it would have been the right one if they'd hired the right guy from the Packers. They should have got Andy Reid. Seifert was done. He went to the Panthers and did nothing. Sometimes you got to be bold. It's bold to fire a coach coming off a 12-win season. I just think the parallel is just so crazy. Seifert, 8 seasons, 2 Super Bowl victories. Last season, 12 wins. Wild card win over the Eagles. Lost in the division round, fired. Kyle Shanahan, 9 years, 2 Super Bowl losses. This past season, wild card victory over the Eagles. Blowout, lost in the division round. It's the same thing, minus the rings. And the best thing about the Brock Purdy contract that people don't understand is that it takes away the quarterback excuse from Kyle. Because you could say, well, George had Steve Young. Can't do that. Kyle has his franchise quarterback. This is who he wanted. They paid him $53 million a year. He's the 7th highest paid quarterback in the league. No quarterback excuse. This guy's Steve Young and Joe Montana combined. This guy has the best quarterback rating in the league since he entered. He's the most efficient quarterback out there. I don't want to hear the excuse. 9 years, franchise quarterback, 2 appearances in the Super Bowl, no wins. And you just got absolutely emasculated at by the Seahawks, who's going to keep doing that to you. I want to hear what Steve has to say. He's talking tomorrow on KBR. I'm listening, man. Steve, Niner fans are looking to you. Keep it real. Be nice. Be diplomatic. But keep it real, man. Please. Please. RS Sad Niner fan says, Grant, it's time to step down from QC and up to DC. Okay, I humbly accept. City by the Bay says, any chance Mac Jones competes for the starting job? If the world were fair. All day, every day, Kim says, Kyle's too much of a choke artist for high-profile DCs. We'll see. Slim Slida says, Jim Schwartz. Yeah, that's how I feel. Ute Now says, I don't think the Niners can win a championship without a good DC. I agree. Jason Orneas says, if the Niners were AFC, I think Shanny is fired now. McDermott, you don't get to use Mahomes as an excuse for not getting over the hump, no adjustments. Yeah, man. I mean, like not drafting Mahomes is a fireable offense. Trading all those picks for Trey Lance is a fireable offense. He's had so many chances. Joey Mellon says Salah's going after Liam Cohn. He revamped his resume being DC for the Niners in order to get the Titans head coaching job with the chance to embarrass the Jags. It's all about his Cohn obsession. It's so interesting. That's going to be a good rivalry. You got LaFleur and Ben Johnson, the NFC North, and Salah and Cohn in the AFC South. I love it. I wonder if he got that job being like, look, you got to go through the Jaguars and they're going to be stealing signs and I know what to do. Dazza says, instead of firing Kyle, why not trade him? I'm sure Bill Steelers and many others would be interested. I agree. Trade him right now. Trade him the Bills right now. 3 first-round picks? 4? Daryl Hicks says, not upset about losing Salah, move on from the wide 9. Yeah, that's another point I want to say. If it's not, it doesn't have to be Jim Schwartz. It doesn't have if they find someone better than Jim Schwartz and they're like, you know what, we're just going to transition to like a 3-4 or something else, then great, do that. Because I've never really thought the wide 9's a gimmick front, and the reason the Niners use it is because it's effective against Kyle. Kyle has this small featherweight offensive line. The whole run game is about getting to the edge. So all you do have to do is set the edge. And you can have your defensive tackles as wide apart as it doesn't matter because Kyle's not going to be able to punish you between the tackles with like gap scheme runs because he doesn't have that personnel. He doesn't have those plays in his playbook. That's why. Dazza says another, and it's like, a kind of an arrogant stance. Like, well, if I can't beat it, then no one can beat it, right? Because I'm the best. Dazza says another trade the Niners could do is Purdy, Bosa, and a first for Burrow. I'd be down. Rahul Berry donates $5. Thank you very much. So does Abu Marco 23. He says, is there an emotional letdown when you see your viewers drop from thousands to hundreds to dozens, or do you enter vacation mode this time of the year? Man, I got 2,000 people watching right now, man. That's what I love about covering the NFL. It's definitely a 12-month a year thing. I mean, maybe June and July kind of slow, but right after the team lost, right after they lost their defensive coordinator, we're on a defensive coordinator search. And we're discussing how much longer the Niners should give Kyle Shanahan to like get the job done. I mean, I live for this. If you guys don't find this, I mean, I find this even more entertaining than a game against the Tennessee Titans. Rahul Berry says Jim Schwartz is the clear option. Yeah, if the Niners can close the deal. Rahul Berry, member for 17 months. Thank you very much. All right.